Good morning, everyone. Now, I heard you all last night. As I was trying to get some sleep in my room coming in last night, I heard many of you, so I know you can do better than that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. So I never necessarily have gotten used to or adjusted to kind of hearing the bio and, the celebration that we share. And yesterday, having an opportunity for a brief period of time to connect with some of my old colleagues from the School District of Lancaster and from the School District of Philadelphia and Philadelphia in general. It's always really humbling. When you see over there in that corner, I hear them. See, I told you, I knew they were loud. They're probably the ones keeping me up all night last night. But it's always humbling as I get to connect and kind of hear of the successes that we have had, both as educators and leaders in our communities, as we have had when I've been given the opportunity to lead in a school district. Because the truth is, I get the opportunity to stand up on a stage and share a little bit about history and where we're going as a Commonwealth. But like you, everyone in this room, it's the team that accomplishes the significant goals that ultimately focus on children, that improve the quality of life of our students, and improve communities. So for that, as we get into, and I get into the moment of sharing, make no mistake that there always gets to be a figurehead. There always gets to be a guy up on stage celebrating successes, sharing challenges, and really just engaging in the work day to day. But it's a team like you that go out and serve our communities, a team like you that learn from each other and engage with each other and teach each other the best practice around focusing on communities, focusing on improving the holistic quality of life opportunities for children, that focus on improving and ensuring that our kids are better the day they leave us than they were the day they started. So I became a true believer in community schools over my 20 years as an educator. I like to think of it as the power of $5. $5. I remember being a teacher and having a first period class, being pretty rigorous, having high expectations of my students, and having this one student, Jose, who kept missing my class. And so, as most of the tough teachers from the neighborhood would do, I waited for him one day after school, pulled him aside, and read him the riot act. What's wrong with you, buddy? Why are you missing my class? You know you're not going to be able to pass if you don't make it to class every day. And he looked at me and said, Mr. Rivera, I only had $5. A pack of tokens at that time was $5, student tokens. So I had to make a decision on Monday, do I buy the pack of tokens at lunch, or do I take mine and my little sister's clothes to the laundromat to clean for the week? He said, so mister, I took our clothes to clean, and I walked to school every day. Committed to coming to school, but having to make a life decision around an issue to take care of both he and his sister or to buy a pack of tokens. That week, connected with a group of other teachers and realized that we have many students that were in that situation. And we went to the laundromat and we went to other areas and asked for donations and were able to pull laundromat cards so that students like he and others that may have were responsible for washing their own clothes and the clothes of their siblings would have something that they could use instead of their transportation money. So that was my first engagement around really thinking outside the box and involving and including a whole community around supporting and improving the quality of life as a child, of the child. $5. As a superintendent, we created these amazing parent academies where we brought for 5 weeks, we brought parents together to learn together, and we provided family-style meals where they sat down and ate. We provided childcare for families who had young children, and then parents could engage in 2 hours of professional development, for themselves, whether advocating on behalf of their children, reading an IEP, English classes, computer classes. And I remember my second Parent Academy walking in and being stopped by a family, and them sharing with me, you know, Pedro, we had $5, and we had to make a decision. Do I order a pizza, or do I take my family on a cab to the parent academies where I know I would be fed, I would have childcare, and I can engage in the school community? So they chose to invest their $5 in their family and in their community. And they said, by the way, we need a ride home. So we found them a ride home. And we learned from that point on, we started offering taxi vouchers for families who wanted to come to the parent academies. We started asking that they carpool together. So families, in some cases, who may never even known each other, were now creating a network of their own to come and provide significant insight while at the same time teaching themselves how to advocate on behalf of their children. So we see the model, we see the impact of this model every day. We see it as parents, we see it as community members, we see it as educators, we see it as advocates, and we see how it can improve the quality of life for students in public education across the country. That's why when the governor and I travel around Pennsylvania, we have a theme that we use, schools that teach. We like to show and really celebrate the fact that our schools should be focusing on teaching and learning. And by bringing partners together, they can help focus on the needs of the holistic child. Because we know that schools can't teach and deliver effective instruction if students are hungry. Schools can't teach and deliver effective instruction if children are not healthy. Schools can't teach and deliver effective instruction if they have socio-emotional needs. Schools can't teach and deliver effective instruction if they're worrying, if children are worrying where they're going to sleep that night. So we know that successful community schools require a local articulation of challenges and opportunities. But it's not a hierarchical relationship. We have to involve and invite every stakeholder to the table and ask that they focus on what they do best to improve what happens in the classroom and in the school. This year at the state level, understanding that if a kid isn't healthy, they can't learn, we worked with the Department of Health to change our immunization strategy. Understanding that if we can have 95% of our students immunized, we go into community immunity. The Department of Health likes to call it herd immunity, but I just kind of refuse to do that. So I say community immunity. I tag that word, and the Secretary of Health is not very happy with me about that, but that's okay. No one here will tell her. So we can make sure that all of our kids are healthy by changing those standards. But we didn't just change the standards. We provided mobile immunization clinics for students in rural communities. We were bringing the clinics to them. We were bringing the opportunities to them. We were partnering with local agencies in our urban and suburban centers to ensure our children were receiving much needed vaccinations. We know that students can't learn if they're hungry, which is why the governor pushed a food security initiative by having the Department of Agriculture, Labor and Industry, Human Services, Economic Development come together to find ways to increase summer feeding, to find ways to push breakfast programs, to find ways to bring farm-to-table opportunities to food deserts, to find ways to engage students through community gardens, engage students through local farms, engage students through produce providers, to not only knowing how to eat healthy, but providing them the opportunities to actually receive the food that are going to ensure they eat healthier. Having grown up in an urban environment, not until I met my wife, I thought iceberg lettuce and the tomato were a salad with a whole heck of a lot of salt and oil on it. And the first time she saw me make a salad, she looked at me and said, "What the heck are you doing? There is no nutritional value in iceberg lettuce, and tomatoes are high in sugar." Oh, that to me, growing up in the city, in an urban environment, is what you could buy at the corner store, which is why we work so hard to expose our children to healthier lifestyles. So we know that when we get into policy, which is what much of our conversation is going to be today and what we're going to engage in around states, there are great opportunities at the state level. There are great opportunities for you to advocate to the state and at the state level to change policy, to change expectations that provide the environment or create the conditions in which we can focus on children holistically. Because here's what we know, and here's the Secretary of Education of Pennsylvania saying this, supported by the governor, so I'm okay. We know that no one single measure is a true indicator of how students can be successful. We know that standardized tests are not the single measure that will ensure success in our classrooms. We know it, absolutely. If we want to ensure that our schools are teaching and our kids are learning, we have to look holistically around how we assess and how we create an environment of teaching and learning. So we started with our school performance profile, or some of you may call it a report card, some of you may call it measures of success. It varies across the country. And we've been working with the General Assembly to make some changes. Taking a performance report card that's currently 60 to 90% heavily weighed towards standardized test performance, to lowering that percentage, but looking at success indicators, things we know students will ensure students are successful in school and in life, looking at literacy rates, whether or not a student can read on grade level, looking at numeracy rates, whether they can perform math on grade level, looking at attendance, looking at access to high-quality programs. Are we offering students advanced placement, international baccalaureate, dual enrollment, career and technical education programs to ensure that when they graduate from high school, they can go on to an industry cert, 2-year degree, 4-year degree, or gainful employment? Looking at English language acquisition for English language learners. Looking at meeting the needs of IEP students. If we look holistically around how we want our students to perform, then guess what? Schools will look at multiple measures to success, and that's where you come in. So if I'm a school leader and I realize I want to improve attendance, not just look at proficiency on a standardized test, I call my partners. If I want to provide access to high-quality programs, I call my partners. If I want to ensure that kids who are attending after school, before school, during the day programs have access to the remediation or even the advancement that they need to perform at those high levels, I engage my partners. So as we look to first change policy, our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders are going to have to work together to ensure that we're providing the opportunities that students need and that our educators deserve to work with. We're also looking at ESSA, which has been a really interesting endeavor. So we put out a call for action. We were hearing that, hey, if you call, you're going to ask the stakeholders to get involved, and no one's going to show up. We know that this is going to be an opportunity to create a new plan around the state that will impact the future of education in our Commonwealth and across the country for years to come. So we started just picking individuals' brains, folks who are part of the system, and shared, so how do you bring in stakeholders? And they said, well, we've tried, and they don't show up. We've called them, and they don't show up. I said, well, there has to be a way. So we sent out an email. We said, you are one of our partners that we've worked with for many years. We'd like to invite you and ask you to invite some friends to participate in 5 sessions. Session 1 and Session 5 will be general stakeholder groups. Session 2, 3, and 4 will be intensive work groups. We're going to focus on 4 areas: educator certification, educator effectiveness, assessment, and school accountability. How do we help support our high-performing schools, and how do we help support our low-performing schools? So we shot out a call for action. Over 400 people signed up. Over 400 people signed up and said, we want to be a part of this. So today, we're looking at the process and looking at ways to engage hundreds of stakeholders from across the Commonwealth, urban communities, rural communities, suburban communities, civil rights leaders, educators, administrators, parents, students, college deans. It's amazing. Individuals who have never gotten involved in their educational world, in their local educational system, asking to be a part of change. So it's interesting when you ask, so what's the first thing you can do around pushing this movement of community schools, around pushing the movement of involving external stakeholders as part of this process? It's pretty simple. You ask. You know, folks expect for it to be, you know, this big life-changing moment, right? So what do you do? You ask. Second, you make yourself present. We're not inviting everyone to the Capitol. We're not inviting everyone to one, you know, static location over the course of 5 meetings. We're going to take the show on the road, so to speak. And we're going to engage with stakeholders in their community. We're going to visit communities that the Department of Education historically has never visited. We've been going to rural communities where we want to talk about curriculum and instruction, and they want to talk about access and equity. We're going to urban districts where for many years schools have been, you know, left without resources, left without, you know, opportunity and listening and hearing from them. We're also going to our suburban and wealthier districts because we don't hate the fact that those students have access to some great resources and opportunities. We want to make sure every student has access to what they have access to. So thank you. So when you think of your work and you think of how we work hard to meet standards and set high expectations, when you think of what you do, your job, like ours, is to ensure our kids are better the day they leave us than they were the day they started. And that takes work each and every day, each and every week, each and every year by each and every one of you. So thank you and continue to fight the good fight, and I look forward to hearing of our many successes. Thank you.